Okay. So yesterday, I think we discussed about the string functions and the what is that other topic we discussed? String functions and if condition, right? If else condition. If elif and else conditions we have discussed, right? Okay. So like you guys have to understand, at least you have to have basic idea about the if conditions and the string functions, guys. Okay, those are very important one. Okay, so today my agenda is to like make you understand about the exception handling. So in real time, we have to use this concept as well in order to handle the errors, exceptions, I can say. Okay, sometimes we have to use the inbuilt exceptions, or sometimes we have to write our custom functions, custom exceptions. So all those things will be required. Okay, and one more concept is also there, guys, logging. I haven't prepared any document for that one. I'll prepare that one. I'll try to like discuss that one as well over the weekend or like some other day, or directly I'll try to explain in the Databricks itself. Okay, anyway, I have to explain that one in Databricks, so I'll try to explain directly there on. Okay, so okay, coming to exception handling. So when you write some program, let's say I'm trying to write here, so print of. Okay, print of, I'm just missing here intentionally closing bracket here. Within double quotes, I'm writing here. So, hello, okay, I'm writing here, Siva. Okay, hello, Siva. So if I try to execute this one, we are getting some error. What is that error we are getting here? End of file error while parsing. That means it is clearly indirectly saying that, hey, bracket got missed here, open closing parenthesis got missed here, and you have to put that one. Okay, so how does this Python knows that it got missed and all those things? It is giving this error. How does it know that? Okay, one more time. Okay, what I will do is I'll just try to write here a equal to 10. I'll write here. Okay, now what I will try to inside the print command, what I will try to write is so type of B. I'll try to write here. I know B is not defined, A is defined here, but intentionally I'm giving B here. B is not defined anywhere. Now, if I try to execute this one, it is throwing error. So name B is not defined. That means B variable is not defined in my Python. See how it is throwing this error. How does it know that, okay, B is not defined? Okay, so what I wanted to say here is, in any programming language, if at all, if you want to build some application, okay, you have to write let's say 100 lines of code or 200 lines of code. Sometimes due to like human mistakes or due to some what I can say is invalid inputs, passing invalid inputs to the Python program. Because of any reason, Python or any programming language will raise exceptions actually. Will throw errors, I can say. Exception is nothing but an error, throwing error. Okay. So what are all the different types of like exceptions or types of errors are there in the any programming language? Not only in Python, guys, any programming language. Even in Java also, it is applicable. So basically, there are three types of like errors are there. One is compile time error, and second one is logical errors, and third one is runtime errors. Okay. Let me talk about one by one here. Compile time errors. Compiling. So whenever you write something here, what happens in the backend? Let's say I'm missing here the parenthesis. Okay, backend actually like Python has built all the print is a predefined function, right? It has some syntax. It maintains actually some syntaxes in the backend, right? It maintains some code right in the backend. Print has to be. It has to close the bracket. It has to start with the like open parenthesis, open bracket, like that. It has some syntaxes. If you miss in, if you're not following any of the predefined syntaxes in Python, then it will simply throw, compile time errors. If you do any syntactical mistakes in your programming, then it will simply throw compile time errors. At the time of compilation, it understands that, okay, this guy missed actually closing bracket, and like we have to raise an exception for that. That is the reason why when I missed closing bracket here, then it is throwing error here. At the time of compilation, it is throwing that error. Okay. And second one, logical errors. Okay. So I have an example here for logical errors. So I'm trying to execute this one here. This one. I'm trying to calculate the area of the rectangle here. Area of the rectangle. So for that, I'm trying to create a function. I'm trying to like put it in a separate cell here. Okay. I'm creating a function. Calculate area is function. Now I'm trying to execute that query. I mean, I'm trying to call that particular function. How do you call the function? Since it has written right here, so we have to assign that, we have to take one variable and we have to assign that function to a variable. Now calculate area of, since it is accepting two parameters here, you have to pass two arguments here, 5 and 10. Okay, print of area. So what you're getting here, you know that you're going to get 15. Programmatically, this is correct. But logically, the area of the rectangle is length plus breadth, or length plus width. Breadth or width, anything is okay here. Logically, is this correct? Programmatically is correct. I know. No syntactical mistakes, nothing. Everything is perfect here. But this is a some logic we are missing right here. That logic is actually in place of plus, we are supposed to put into here star. Length into breadth or length into width will give actually rectangle area. So like not intentionally I'm doing, by mistake I may do that one. So these kind of errors, these kind of logical mistakes, generally we call it as logical errors. Python does not know whether it is logically correct or not. Whatever you write it, it will simply take it. That's it. It will go and execute it. That's it. So being a like programmer, you have to know whether it is logically correct or not. You have to be mindful while writing the code logic. Okay, this kind of errors we call it as logical errors. Next, let's say I have a list, guys, here. So a equal to, within curly brackets I'm writing is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now what I wanted to do is here a of I'm just trying to access here 10. A of 10. Okay. A of 10 means what it is going to print actually. Let's say a of 4 I'm giving here. Now, is it correct or not? A of 4 means what you're going to get? What you're going to get? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. You're getting 5. See, indirectly you're passing the index value here. Index value. So index value starts with always 0. 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 is nothing but value 5. You're getting like that. Okay. Now what I will do is same program. I'll just try to write it here 10. I'll simply changing here 10. So do we have 10th index here? 10th index here? No, we don't have that. Okay. See, it is throwing actually list index out of range. Why is it throwing this error? Why is it throwing error? Because you're trying to access the index which does not exist in the list. This kind of errors, we call it as runtime errors. Runtime errors. Let's say I'll try to like take one more thing here. A equal to 10 by 0 I'm taking, right, trying to write here. Okay, print of A I'm writing here. I know we everybody know that, okay, any number cannot be divided with 0. Cannot be divided. Any number cannot be divided with 0. you'll get actually answer infinity. Actually, infinity cannot be defined here. That is the reason why what it will say is, it will simply throw error that division by error. Division by error. This is also a runtime error. So when you're writing a program, 100 lines of code or 200 lines of code or 1000 lines of code, you may get this kind of errors due to, let's say I'm passing this value dynamically, guys. I want you to pass this value dynamically. Now, how do you pass that one dynamically? Come on, tell me. N equal to int of, how do you write that one? Yesterday I told you, right? If you want to pass some value dynamically here, input of, within double quotes here, you can write enter a number, okay, colon, even you can write anything inside the input, okay, so that it will try to prompt. Even if you don't write anything here, no problem at all. Nothing will happen. Even you can miss this one. Okay, but when you try to execute this one, what will happen here? It is simply giving box here. You not understand what we have to do with this box. So just to understand it easily, we are writing some like theory here. Okay, I'm just writing here. Control Z I'll try to do. When I try to execute this one, what will happen? It is prompting here. Oh, sorry. Something is missing here. What is that? Int of input of enter a number. It is supposed to ask that one, right? What happened to this? Why previously it asked, why it is not asking now? Just a second. What happened? One second. Is it still executing or what? One second. Let me restart this one, kernel. Just a second, guys. Enter, or otherwise I'll try to write it in another cell. Copy and try to paste it. Enter a number. Okay. Now let me execute this one. What happened to this one suddenly? Am I doing any mistake, guys, here? Int I'm opening here, I'm closing here. Input of enter a number. Okay, you can take anything here inside this one.
Maybe restart kernel.
It restarted, right, already?
Maybe
Okay.
kernel issue.
Maybe it's a kernel issue. Let me try to execute it one more time. I think it's restarted. Yeah, connected now. Kernel is ready now. Now let me, now it is asking. So it was a like kernel issue previously. Now it started asking this one. Now here, what I will do is, if I try to give here 10, then what it is going to give here? I'll just hit enter here. Now 10 by 10 is nothing but 1.0, 1. Okay, I can give 2 also here. One more time, I'll try to execute this one. I'll give 2 here. By mistake, if user enters here 0, then what will happen? 0 cannot be dividable with any number here. 0 cannot be used as a denominator to any number. So it has to throw error. We need to handle those things as well. Again, we got an issue. That's okay. It will throw error definitely. No doubt about it. Okay. Now those kind of errors, actually we call it as a runtime errors. So but I know that at some point of time, user may enter 0 here in place of n. So if you enter 0 here, program will exit like then and there. Program will raise an exception. Program execution will be stopped then and there itself. But I don't want to start the program execution. I don't want to stop it. I want my PVM to execute the following steps, even if you give 0 here. In that case, actually, you need to handle all these exceptions. You need to handle all these exceptions. So for that, we have to use the exception handling concept. So far, what I'm trying to discuss here is what is the need of exception handling. What will happen if you don't handle that one? It will simply stop the execution of the program, which we don't want to do it. We need to handle all the cases here. Let's say what will happen is in real time scenario I'm trying to tell here. Let's say you have one path, guys. Let's say C colon Siva colon C drive. Okay. Inside that one, I have a folder called files. Inside that one, I have a file called emp.txt. Every day, my source team actually placing the file in this location. Every day you started, you're running your Python program exactly at 1 o'clock, 1 p.m. 1 p.m. Okay. Once my Python program started reading the content from this one, it has to load the data into the target table and it has to make an entry into some audit table. Okay. So and so table file read, so and so number of records are there, and target it has loaded like so many records, these many records. That is what I'm expecting actually. I'm trying to read the file, read file, okay, and load data into the target table, load data. Okay, if data is successfully loaded into the target table, we need to make an entry into audit table. Audit table, you guys know, right? What is the source file and how many records are there? How many records are loaded actually into the target table? At what time load started? At what time load completed? Who started the load? Whether load is successful or not? All those things we capture in a audit table in general, in real time. Okay, we have to make an entry into this audit table. Okay, while you guys are reading here, for example, your source team did not place a file on a particular day. When you try to read a file which does not exist, then what it will throw? It is actually expecting a file, but the file is not there here. What will happen then? It will simply throw error, file not found error. It will simply say that, hey, whatever the file you're trying to load, right, that file does not exist. And when it raises that exception, right, it will simply come out of the program. But I don't want to do that. What I wanted to do is, if at 1 o'clock, if my Python program is not able to find that particular file at that particular point of time, then what it has to do is, it has to go and make an entry into the audit table. Hey, today no files found. That is what I wanted to make an entry. No files found, and it should not throw any error. I wanted to execute it smoothly without throwing any error. Then how do you handle that? For this kind of scenarios, we need to handle exceptions. For that, we use actually try except blocks. In Java, same thing, we call it as try catch blocks. Except we call it as in Java catch. This is there in every programming language, not only in Python. It is there in every programming language. Java, Python, Scala, C language, C++, whatever it is. Everywhere this concept is there. Okay, now. Okay. See here, I'll try to write one more command here. What I'll try to write is A equal to, I think I've already taken here. One second, just a second. I'll try to write here this particular command. Okay. Let me try to type it directly. I'm trying to open a file, guys, here. I'm trying to open a file. For that, open function is there directly in Python, open command there. And you have to mention here the file name. Okay, C colon, files colon, something, or movies colon, the file name, whatever you want, the path, actually, you're supposed to mention that path. I'm not mentioning any path. By default path, it will try to take from the C drive. That's okay. Okay, so R is nothing but read mode. You wanted to read that file in a read mode or write mode or read-write mode. What is that mode? That is files concept, actually. You don't need to worry about that one. R is nothing but a read. You simply read that file. I know that the file does not exist, actually. The file is not there in my local. Now, if I try to execute this one, what happened? Why is not throwing error? Just a second, guys. Something is going on in my system. Just a second. It is supposed to throw error. Now it is throwing. See? No such file or directory, that is non-exist file.txt is not there. No such file or directory. See how Python knows that if the file does not exist, it has to throw only this error. How does it know, actually? All these things predefined. When you try to divide with 0 here, it was throwing actually divide by 0 error. How does Python know that it has to throw only that error? How does it know, actually? So we have some predefined exceptions, guys. Predefined exceptions. That is what I'm trying to explain here. Okay. So it will simply stop the execution of the program and it will try to give technical error message. It will try to give us, see, this one, I call it as a technical error message. It is stopping the execution of the program. Yes, it is stopping. And it is trying to give that some meaningful message it is giving. This message, I call it as a technical error message. This is my error message. If it is not giving this technical error message, how do we know that, okay, the file does not exist? It has to give the specific error message it has to give. Otherwise, I will not understand that what exactly it went wrong here. Is it a file reading issue, or file because of the file does not exist, it is throwing error, or while reading something happened in the file, or because of some delimiter it is throwing error? All those things I will not come to know if it is not throwing this error. So it has to specify that error message. It has to specify that. Those messages, I call it as a technical error messages. Okay. See, simply what I'm trying to say here is, when you try to execute a program, if an exception occurs, then simply the Python will stop the execution of the program abnormally. It will simply come out of the program and it will simply give the technical error message. That is what I'm trying to say here. When an exception occurs, these three things will happen in the backend. That is what it is happening here also. Even in the case of here also, when you try to take here 0, that is what happening. See here, when it is entering into this line, see, first it is reading the input from this line, and after that it will enter into this line. And the moment you see, the moment Python observes 0 here, then it will try to throw error here itself, and it will not even execute the next line. Python virtual machine PVM, how we have JVM in Java, in the same way Python also we have PVM, Python virtual machine. Python PVM will come out of the program and it will simply throw error, or it will simply raise an exception. PVM simply come out of the program. That's it. That's what I wanted to say here. Wherever it is finding that exception, it will come out from that line itself, and it will not even execute the next lines. So when exception occurs, these things will happen here. PVM stops the execution and it will come out abnormally. It terminates the execution abnormally. and it exits the execution. It will not execute the further statements, further lines, and it will simply throw that error message. It will simply give us that technical error message. Okay. Now, if it is giving that one, now how do we handle in that case? How do we handle that? See, guys, ultimately, when you write something here, I want graceful termination. Graceful termination means it has to handle this one smoothly. This kind of scenarios. I don't want abnormal termination here. I want graceful termination here. Graceful termination means smoothly it has to handle that one. Smoothly it has to come out. Not by stopping the execution of the program. So in order to have that graceful termination, we need to handle that scenarios using try except blocks. Okay, I'll just go there here directly. Sorry. Okay. So if you want to understand that exceptions, actually, you need to understand about all these things actually. Try, except, else, finally, rise. If you understand about these 5 keywords, then you're done with the exceptions. Okay. Now, how do we write? How do we generally write these exceptions? Okay. So this is the syntax case actually. Remember the syntax. Whenever you write a Python program, you need to remember this structure actually. Okay. Now, what you have to do is you write a try block. Okay. Before try block, whatever you want, you can write it. Which all are the lines you think that they may raise an exception? It may be now or in future. You need to write that piece of code, or you need to write that statements within the try block. I know that this piece of code will raise an exception. It may be now or in future. I have to keep that block here. I have to keep that block here. Okay. And after that, so whenever you write a try, mandatorily you have to write except block as well here. When you write a try, mandatorily you have to write except block. Except exception class name 1. Okay. So what is this new word class name? So what happens, here? See here, it is throwing no such file or directory or file not found. It is simply throwing that file not found, right? This one we call it as a class. This one is we call it as a class. Backend actually, this class is defined. It's a predefined class in Python. That is what I'm trying to say here. So that exception class name we need to mention. So it is throwing that. Okay, I'll show you the example so that you'll understand it in a proper way. Okay, so this part we call it as a exception class. Exception class. See, all these exceptions comes under exception. We have one concept called base exception actually. So all these subclasses actually comes under that base exception. You will not understand that classes concept at this point of time, because in order to understand that classes and all, you need to understand the oops concept as well. So I'll not dig much into that concept now. For now, you try to understand this is a just exception class. So just like this one, just like this, divide by 0, or file not found, or index error, or like previously we got some error, right? Like name not defined. All those things are actually predefined classes, exception classes, not normal classes, exception classes. So whenever you get this kind of exception, it is Python is going and simply calling these exception classes. So what you have to do is accept that exception class. Whenever you get this kind of error, whenever this is meeting actually finding out this exception class, then you have to do something. What do you want to do whenever it raises an exception? You want to do something here, then write that piece of code here. Okay. And one more thing. one more except you can write here. I mean, you can write any number of except blocks, guys. There is no limit on that one. You can you can write even 10, 50, like 60, 100 except blocks also here. Generally, we write 4 to 5 except blocks here. Or max, we will write 10. And that depends on the requirement. That depends on the length of the program also, I can say. I'm not saying that every time we write only 10 except blocks or 20 except blocks here. That depends on your use case. So that exception class name, second class name, whatever you wanted to mention, that you can mention. Okay, let me show you an example here so that you will understand the this one easily. Okay, let's try to take this one here. Okay, I'm trying to define one Python function here. That Python function name is divide numbers, and it is actually taking two parameters, A and B. What I'm trying to write is, I told you, right? Whatever the code, you know that it may rise an exception in future or now. Then you have to put that block of code in a try block. Now, whenever user enters 0 here, I know that it will rise an exception. Apart from the 0, it will execute smoothly for all other inputs. For all other values of B, it will execute smoothly. Only for 0, I know that it will raise an exception. Now I have to handle that one. Now try except I know already like some predefined exception classes, right? One of the predefined exception class is zero division error. That is one of the predefined exception class. Okay, except whenever you find this exception here and try to do this activity, and print simply cannot divide by 0. Okay, whenever you see, let's say this time I'll try to give like number in a string, B in a string format or A in a string format. Can you divide like number with string? Can you divide number with string? No. It will simply throw type error. Type error. That is also one of the predefined exception. Then whenever this exception occurs, then try to do this activity. See, here I'm trying to write here print command, but in real time you may write like some activity here. Block of statements you can write here. Okay, I'll talk about the else and finally later. First, we'll try to understand only except try and except. That's it. Now let me try to create a function. Yes, function is created. Now I have to call the function. How to call the function here? So function name. I'll simply pass here number 10 comma 2. What is that output you're going to get? What is that output you're going to get? Now it will go and execute this piece of code here. Now what will happen? A is 10, B is 2. 10 by 2, 5. If is it throwing an exception here? No, it is not throwing any exception. Now, if it is not throwing any exception, will it execute this except block? No, it will not execute this one. Will it execute this except block? No, it will not execute this one. It will go to the next block called else block. In the try, actually, you can write even else block as well. How you're writing in if condition or for loop or while loop, how you're writing, right? In the same way, here also you can write else block here. Why we write else block is, whenever if there is no exception in the here, then it will execute the else block. If there is an exception here, it will simply come out of this one. And if at all, if you want to do some activity on top of this, if you don't, if it is not raising any exception, you can put that block of code after else block. But else block is optional here. It's not mandatory to write the else block here. It's optional. I'll tell you the exact use case of the else block little later. Okay, and later I can write finally also. I'll tell you why we have to write finally is, whether it is raising an exception or not, Python has to execute at any cost this particular piece of code. Then we have to write the finally. Okay, generally why we have to write the finally block, I'll tell you one real-time use case. Let's say Here you are writing, you're reading the file. Okay, you're reading the data from the CSV file using pandas programs, pandas functions. Okay, so while reading the data, actually, it has thrown some exception. Some exception. Whenever it raises an exception, what will happen? PVM will come out of the program, right? PVM will try to terminate the program execution and it will simply come out, right? Yes. See, Python actually opened this particular file, right? Backend, some session will be created for opening this file. Backend, it has opened. Opened means some session has been created. Now, who has to close that session? If you keep on opening the sessions like that, if you keep on opening the files like that, then PVM what I can say is PVM will not accept that. I can say opening sessions, it will not accept. Somebody has to close that particular file. Otherwise, if somebody else is trying to read the same file, right, it will simply say that the file is already open. Other person cannot be able to read that file again. So you have to close if you're coming out of the program. For that, you have to write the finally block. Whether it is raising an exception or it is not raising an exception, Python will go and execute the block which is there in the finally block. This block of statements, it has to execute. Okay. Even if it is raising an exception, if it is not raising an exception, irrespective of that, finally block has to be executed. That's it. Now come and tell me conclusion points one by one here. You will write whatever the code you have doubt, right? I mean, it may throw error or it may raise an exception in future. That piece of code you have to write within try block, and you have to handle that exceptions here. You can write any number of except blocks here. 100 also you can write it, no problem. Okay. And after that, you have to write the else block. Else block is nothing but if it is not throwing. Okay. In the else block, actually, okay, you know that this piece of code will raise an exception. And you know that this piece of code will not raise an exception. That kind of code, you will actually write it in else block. That kind of code will write it in a else block. And finally, we'll try to close that. For finally block, we need to execute it. Actual logic you need to put here in the else block, I can say. This is the actual syntax of the try except blocks, actually. So this is what I was trying to explain here. I mean, I'll give you more examples, guys. Don't worry. Still, we have to discuss many things. I'm simply giving a I want you to understand the meaning of the syntax. Okay. Now we'll try to understand one by one here. First, try block. So which piece of code, which part of code we need to write it in a try block? Come on, tell me. Whichever the code may raise an exception, that code we need to write it in a try block. That's what I mentioned here. Okay. So okay. So and the points that you need to remember is a try block must be followed by at least one except block. Only try block you're not supposed to write it. If you mention try block, if you write a try block, you have to write except block. You have to write it. It's mandatory. Okay. But you're not, but there is no guarantee that except block you have to write like this only. There are different forms are there. I'll try to explain that different formations also. For now, you just remember when you write a try block, you have to write a except block. Because you're telling that whenever this piece of code is raising an exception, then you have to handle iterate something. How do you handle that one? For that, you need to have that except. That's what I'm trying to say here. Okay, if there is no except block, it will try to throw a syntax error. Now let me show you that one here. Okay, consider that I'm not writing these two lines of code here. Okay, I'm simply writing like this one. Okay, see, it is simply throwing that, hey, except block is missing here, invalid syntax. Invalid syntax. It is not valid. You have to write except. That's what I'm trying to say here in the try block. Next, except. You guys know how to, like, if at all, if you want to, whenever it is raising an exception, right, you have to handle that one, right? To handle that one, you have to write that except block. Except if you know that predefined class, predefined like exception class, you can mention that. You can mention that. How I mentioned that one here, right? So control Z. How I may handle that one here, right? So in same way, you have to handle it. Let's see if you're trying to read the file here. Okay, whenever you're if you're not able to read that particular file, you have to handle file not, whenever the file not found exception occur, then you have to like write print comment saying that file not found. Okay, or if at all, if you want to write like insert command saying that no files found in the directory, respective directory, you can write it whatever you want. Print command, insert command, update command, whatever you want, you can write it here. See, just for understanding purpose, I'm just writing here print command. There is no rule that every time you have to write a print command. I'm simply saying that block of code you can write after except. Okay. So except block must be placed immediately after the try block. Yes. You cannot start the program directly with the except block. You have to write the first try block, and after that except block, you have to write it. Okay. So one except block can be followed by additional except blocks. After one except, you can write any number of except blocks. Any number of except blocks. Okay. When there is no exception, the PVM will go to else block directly. When there is no exception here, if there is no exception here, PVM will directly go to the else block and it will try to execute the else block statements. That is also one of the rule you need to understand here. Okay. And now else block. It's not mandatory, guys. Else block is not mandatory. It is an optional actually. If you want, you can write it. Otherwise, leave it. No problem. Okay. The else block contains the code that should be executed if no exceptions occur in the try block. Okay. You know that this piece of code actually will not throw any exception. In that case, you try to write that piece of code in else block. Okay. The else block execute only after, only if the try block successfully executes. Remember that. Else block is optional. It's not mandatory. I'm highlighting this point here. Else block is optional. Okay. So if at all, if you want to use the else block, you have to use this else block only after all except blocks. Before finally block, I can say. Before finally or all except blocks, you have to mention that else block. Okay. See, I'm trying to explain here the rules of the each and every block here. Try block, except block, else block, and finally block. Now tell me, try is optional or mandatory? If at all, if you have decided to handle the exceptions, try is mandatory or not? Try block is mandatory or not? Am I audible? Okay. Except block. If you have written try, except block is mandatory or not?
Yes, mandatory.
Yes, it's mandatory. So after that, do I need to really mention the else block?
No.
No, not required. And after that, finally block is also optional, guys. In your program, you can put only try and except. That is also okay. Finally block is also optional. If you want, you can write it. Otherwise, leave it. No problem. No issues. If you want to handle whether it is rising an exception or it is not rising an exception, irrespective of that, if you want to execute something, then write the finally block here. Irrespective of the exception, if you want to execute something, then put that piece of code in a finally block. Now let's try to understand one by one example here. Okay, the simple way of handling the try is like this. Simple, very simple one. Okay, let me try to take one more cell here. See, what I'm trying to do is try. You can start the program with try also, no problem. Or before this try, if you want to write something here, a equal to 10, b equal to 20, you can write happily that one. There is no guarantee that you have to start the program with the try block here. Okay, you can write any number of lines here, and after that you can put here like a try block, or you can write here print off. So f string of I can write here hello Shiva. Okay, I am putting some exclamatory marks here. That's it. You can write whatever you want before this try block, and after the try block also, of course. Now try colon is mandatory here. You need to put, and I told you already, we don't have any curly brackets concept here. It has to follow the indentation. That is the reason why the next line it has started here. So whatever you wanted to write, you have to write within the try block here. You have to follow the indentation here. Okay, result equal to, now what I'm trying to write it 10 by 0. I know that it will throw an exception. Okay, now I have to handle that. To handle that one, except, okay, I know the predefined exception class, that is zero division error. Whenever it is actually taking this exception, whenever it is rising this zero division error, then do this. What do you want to do? I wanted to print here actually, cannot divide by 0. I'm writing my own like error message here. My own error message. Whenever it is throwing, whenever it is taking actually this particular exception, then simply print this one. Now let me try to execute this one here. So am I writing any else block, final block here? No. I told you those two are optional. In your program, you can write only try and except blocks. When you mention try, it's mandatory to mention the except block. You cannot mention try block alone. You cannot mention except block alone. If you use try, you have to use except. Okay. Now let me execute this one. See, if I don't do that one, is it PVM is coming out smoothly from the program? Is it coming out smoothly in the program? From the program? Is it coming out? No, it's not coming out of the program smoothly. Graceful termination was not there if you don't handle like this. See, guys, what I'm trying to say here is I'm simply commenting these lines here. If you want to like comment multiple lines, control / you have to use in your keyboard. Even in Databricks also, same shortcut you have to use. If you want to comment multiple lines, control / you have to use. Okay, now what I'm trying to say here is I'll simply write here result equal to 10 divided by 0. I'll write it here. This when you comment these lines, actually these lines will not be executed. You guys know that one, right? Okay. Now I have only these 4 lines of code. If I try to execute this one, simply it is PVM is coming out of the program execution and it is throwing technical error message here. But I don't want to come out of the program execution. I want graceful termination of the program. For that, I'm trying to write all these things. Now you got the reason why I have to handle this try and except here. Why I have to like handle these exceptions? Okay, now let me execute it one more. See, cannot divide by 0. Where did I write that one? I've written this one in a print command. This is one example. Simple, straightforward is whatever the code you have, you know that will raise an exception in future. Try to put that in a trip block. That's it. Whenever it raises an exception, handle that one in the except block. You have to handle that one here. But Siva, since you know this predefined exception block here, you have simply mentioned that one. But I don't know every time the exception block here, right? I'll try to handle that one as well. Don't worry. Don't worry, I'll try to handle that one as well. Okay, now let me show you one more example here. Now, this is very good example. Let me try to explain it first. I started my program with these 3 lines again. I'm trying to start here with these 3 lines. I'll try to take here n because A already taken, right? That is the reason I'm trying to take n here. Now first, Python will execute the first line, second line, third line. It will come to 4th line now here. It will come to 4th line. Line numbers also I'll try to show. I think where is that line numbers? Line numbers you can able to see somewhere. I don't know. Where is that option? Can somebody check that one? Where is that option to show that line numbers? Toggle line numbers here. So view toggle. Yeah, this is the one. Yeah, it's there in the view actually. Now here in line it will come to line number 4. In line number 4, nothing is there. Okay, it will go to the line number 6 now here because this is commented, right? It will not execute this one. Commented lines will not be executed. Now it will come to 6th line here. Now n equal to input of enter number. It will actually take the input from you. And after that, it will come to the 7th line here. Now, okay. Now, you're entering a valid number or not. It will check here. If it is a valid number, it will try to divide with that number with the 10. Then it will give the respective output. Now, in this case, if you enter valid number here, will it execute the line number 8, line number 9, line number 10, and line number 11? 8 to 11 lines will be executed if you are entering proper number here.
No.
As per code, it was no.
Because the code is executing smoothly right here. Then Python will not execute the except blocks. Only when there is an exception, then only it will try to execute that except block. Why you are writing this one means for like to handle that exception, I'm trying to write all these things. Of course, you're increasing the number of lines of code here. That's okay. That's okay. Even though it is not able to execute this one, that's okay. After that, whatever you're writing right here, after that, I can write anything here. So print off within brackets here. So program execution program execution completed. Okay, I can write anything. I can write story also here. Okay, sorry, my bad. 1 second, guys. Program execution completed. 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 Now tell me, if I give proper number here, which are all the lines will get executed here? If I try to give the proper number here, let's say I'm giving 2 here. I'm passing number 2.
1 to 7 and 12.
1, 2, 3 will not be executed.
1
Okay,
to
up
7.
to line number 7. Okay, very good. Okay, after that, which line will be executed?
12.
Line number 12, it will execute directly because the exception is not raised here, right? That is the reason. Now tell me. Now tell me. Instead of this one, what I will do is I'll just try to mention a equal to let's say 2. Let's say you can hard code that value if you want. Okay, let's say I'm trying to give here 2. Now let's see here what are all executing here. Hello Shiva, it is executing. That means this one is executing, this one is executing, this line is also executing, and directly it is coming here and dividing that one. And after that, if you want to write the print command, okay, I'll try to write here print command, print of within f string here, result is colon. If I want to handle the variables within print, then how do you mention that one? You have to use the curly brackets here. Curly brackets indicates that variable is there before this print command, so that it will try to replace you. Now let me execute this. See here, result is 5. It is executing this line as well, and after that directly it is executing this piece of code. That's it. Now what I will do is I'll just try to I'll try to put as it is here. I'll try to change the value 0 here. Now tell me in this case which are all the lines will get executed here. 1 to 7 as it is.
1 to 7. 7 throws error and then
7, huh? 1 to 7 or 1 to 8?
1 to 7.
1 to 7. What will happen here? Now come and tell me here. Whenever like Python executes this particular line, right? It will raise an exception here itself. Whenever it is raising an exception, it will go and check the corresponding exception class is defined or not. So value error is a corresponding exception block? No. So 0 division, since it is not matching here, it will go and look for another except block here. In another except block, actually that exception class is handled here. Okay, since it is handled, its corresponding block of statements will get executed. Yes. Now which line will get executed here? Line number 12 directly. And after that, which line will get executed? After that, which line will get executed? Line number 12, 13 will get executed or not?
Yes.
Yes. Yes, line number 13 also will get executed. Definitely. Let me try to like handle that. Let me execute this. See, cannot divide by 0. It is there here, and after that it is executing this line also. Now what I will do is I'll just try to put here 2 within single quotes or double quotes case. Within single quotes or double quotes, I'm trying to handle here. See, 2 is a value or is it a string here? 2 is a value or a string? It's a string, right? It's a string value, right? I can say. Now, can you divide 10 with string? No, you can't. Now, in this case, what are all the lines will get executed here? Come on, help me. Which are all the lines get executed?
1 to 6, 10 and 13.
1 to 6, 1 to 6,
10 and 13.
It will execute 7th line also.
Yeah.
It will execute 7th line also. But when it is executing this particular line, it will throw an exception saying that this is not a number. Then it will go and check its corresponding exception block is defined or not. Okay, this exception block it will come here. So since it is not a value, it is matching here. Exception is matching here. Then will it execute this line or not? Yes. And after that, so does it need to check this one? No, not required. Now will it execute this one? No. After that, will execute this line? Yes. Now let me execute this one so that, see, unsupported. I think we need to like handle it properly here. I'll show you that one. Now what I will try to do is type error also I'll try to handle here. Okay. So this one value error is not satisfying that one. What I will do is I'll just try to handle that one here. Except space type error. What is that class name? See, whatever I got here based on that one, I'm trying to type here. colon, within that print of what you have to write within f string, you have to write here unsupported data type. You can write whatever you want. Unsupported, SUPPORTED, unsupported data type. Whatever you want, you can write it. Okay, now if I try to execute this one, whether it is handling it properly or not, you see, unsupported data type. Whatever I've written here, I'm able to get it here. See, ultimately, my goal is to execute this piece of code smoothly. End of the day, eventually, I need graceful termination. For that, I'm trying to do all these things. Okay. Now, hope you guys understood the try and except here, except blocks. Next, with else block, I'll try to give an example. Now, come on, help me here. Let me try to give here. What are all the exceptions I've handled here? All these things I'll try to put here. Now else block I'm writing here. Now, instead of taking the input here because it is creating an issue, right? What I will do is I'll try to give here 2. Now come on. If I give 2 here, what are all the lines will get executed here? Now after that, after else block also, I'll try to write here print. Okay. I wanted to write here within double quotes or f string of also you can take here. Program execution completed, whatever the line is there, that I'm trying to put here. Now tell me, as per your understanding, you tell me if I give 2 here, which lines will get executed here? One, two, 1, 2 will get executed. While executing 3, will it raise an exception? No. Now, except blocks, does it need to execute? No. Now, what did I tell you? Else block, when there is no exception, it has to execute the else block or not? In the else block, what is there? The result is. And after that, I've written print here. The print also will get executed or not here? Now, these 3 lines will be executed here. And after that, else block will be executed. And after that, print also will get executed. So this print command is nowhere related with all these blocks actually. When there is no exception, following commands will be executed smoothly. Okay, now let me try to execute this one and see what is happening here. Execute this. Now see, result is 5.0 and program execution is completed. It is as expected, it is executing. Now next, else block also done. Now finally block I'm trying to do here. Okay. Yeah, let me, oh, sorry. See, I'll not execute this one. I'll try to show you just an example. Okay. Now, generally, we write this finally block for file closings and all. Generally, in general, we write that. Now, the syntax is like this. Try file equal to open that particular file in a read mode. And if at all, if you want to read the content and assigning that content to the content variable, of course. And after that, I'm trying to handle the file. If the file, if it is not able to open the file, right, it will simply find that exception file not found error class exception. Okay. And if it is not there, it will try to print this one. And after that, whether it is raising an exception or it is not raising an exception, irrespective of that, Python has to execute the finally block. Inside the finally block, I wrote here actually, wrote print of closing the file, and I'm closing the file with close function, close method. Okay, generally this is the use case of the finally. Or even sometimes, you know what happens? You will read the data from the database. Let's say you're trying to read the data from the OLTP. Okay. you opened the database connection here. Okay, and in between you got some exception while loading the data, or somewhere you got some exception. Now you opened the database connection, right? Backend session got opened, right? Somebody has to close that session, right? Now you have to close that session whether it is raising an exception or not. So you have to handle that one here. Now I'll tell you one special concept here. Siva, so far you have discussed about the predefined exception classes. What are all there in the Python? What if I have custom exception? How do you do that one? How do we handle that one? How do we handle that? Let's say I have this piece of code. I have this piece of code. Let me try to execute that. I'm writing a function here. I'll try to write it in a separate block. See guys, why I'm trying to writing a function every time is, in real time we generally handle like this only every time. That is the reason I'm trying to explain everything with respect to functions. We write everything like repeated activities. We try to do it we try to create functions. Okay, now I have a requirement whether the age is positive or negative. If somebody enters the age in negative numbers, then I have to raise an exception actually, saying that age is negative, something like that. Or otherwise, I have to execute it smoothly if it is a positive number. See, age is negative or positive. That is our own goal, right? Actually, do we have this kind of predefined exception classes in Python? No. You have to handle that one on your own. You can create that exception classes and you can use that exception classes in your program. Okay, how do we do that? Now here, define check age. Age is a parameter here. It will take it as an input. If age less than 0, how do we check whether it is a less than negative value or positive value? You'll compare with the 0, right? If it is a less than 0, obviously I can say that age is a negative. Then I'm using a word called rise. Rise. If at all, if you want to handle custom exceptions, you have to use this keyword rise. For the predefined ones, actually, you don't need to use this one. Only for the custom ones, you have to use this rise keyword. Rise, value error. I mean, something you have to rise it, right? What do you want to error? Value error, I wanted to rise it. Okay, so return. Otherwise, if it is not a negative, right, then I have to print actually you are 10 years old or 20 years old or 60 years old, like that. I wanted to print it actually. Now, this is one function actually. Okay, now I'm trying to write my main block, main code. Print check age of check age is nothing but my Python function. Python function I'm passing -5 negative value. Okay, as an input, as a parameter here. Okay, then print command inside the print actually it will execute the function and it will go and execute this line of code here. Age is less than 5. Yes, -5 is less than 0. Then it will simply raise an exception. It will stop the execution here itself, and it will pass on the value to this one. Okay, except this one, because the exception is handled here. While executing this particular one, actually we got an exception. Okay, then the control will be passed to the except block here. And the except block value error I'm taking here. See here, I'm trying to explain a little bit differently here. Directly you can take here except value error as E. This is an alias name actually. Wherever you use as keyword, then you have to understand that it's a alias name. As E, that means whatever the error exception you got, right? That exception error message actually stored in a E. Backend, it is going to create an object actually. Same concept I explained in Snowflake also, procedures. Okay, except value error as the alias name also you can mention, or directly you can write that value error also here. That means whatever the value is there in the value error, it will try to hold that one here, and I'm trying to print that one. What is there inside that one? I'll just try to print it here. See, I'm just taking the alias name of this value error and I'm trying to put it here. Sometimes in real time, like you have to like convert that into string format as well, if required. Str is only one. I can write like this also. Okay, now let me try to create this function here, and I'm trying to execute the main code here. See, age cannot be negative. This is the custom exception. But program is executing smoothly, but this is a custom exception. If I enter like a positive value here, then it will not even think about the exceptions and all here. So it is directly printing you're 5 years old. Now you understood the use of the rise here and how we can define the custom exceptions and all. How you can throw the custom messages here as an exception. Guys, am I confusing you guys? Any confusion here?
No.
No, right? I know. I mean, if you are really new to the programming language, and if you haven't written any Python program or Java program or any C program, it's very, I mean, first time it's difficult to digest, but slowly as you start practicing, right, you'll understand definitely this one. You'll understand the necessity of the try except blocks, exception handling. It's mandatory to handle all these kind of exceptions. Okay, so one more example I'll try to give here. No. So I have this requirement, guys, actually. This time, I don't want to throw the message like this. I wanted to create my own exception class. Exception class. On top of that one, I wanted to handle that. Okay. Now, what I'm trying to say is, okay, so I have a number here. I wanted to check whether the number is in between the range or not. Okay. It's a guess game, actually, I can say. Guess a number game. I'll enter a number here, or you can take n equal to input of number something you can take here. No, let me try to take it that way. Okay, so I think we already have it right here somewhere that. Okay, I'll try to write it, no problem. Okay, number equal to how do you write it? Int of input of.
It's already written in number 4.
Enter a number. Something you can write like this. Oh, I think it is already there, right? I'm sorry. It's not required. Oh, sorry, sir. This is required, right? Because I'm trying to compare the given number with the entering number. Okay, let's say I'm hard coding this one. I'm sorry. Okay, whatever the number you're entering, whether that number is equivalent to this number or not, it will try to check. Every time it will try to give the clue to you whether this number is greater than this number or less than this number or not. Okay, let me try to play this game now here. Okay, let me execute this one. Enter a number. Why we are getting this prompt here? Because of this line. Okay, now I'm entering 3 here. Actual number is 10. That is in your mind, but I'm trying to I'm trying to enter 3. I'm guessing a number 3 here. Whatever you are thinking, right? That number I'm thinking as 3 here. Okay. What I'm trying to say is, if number is less than number, if num is less than number, num is nothing but what? Whatever the number you're entering here, that number is less than this one. Then what I wanted to do is raise value to small error. Value to small error. This is my custom exception class. I'm going to define that one. Don't worry. Raise this. Because this is not a predefined one actually. This is a custom exception one. Okay. Else, elif in the elif block, if number is greater than number, value to large error. I mean, let's say if I try to give here 11, it will try to compare. It will try to compare with this number, and it is saying that okay, value is too large than the value you're thinking. Okay. Then based on that one, else I'm trying to. I mean, if it is not these two actually, if you are entering correct number, it will simply say that congratulations, you guessed it correctly. Otherwise, if it is an error here, I mean, if it is 3 here, then what will happen, here? Okay, if it is a 3, what will happen? We'll try to understand the execution here. First, it will try to execute this one. Back and it is storing number equal to 10. Okay, number is an object here. Okay, back and it is storing the number is pointing an object here. It is storing 10 here. Okay, and after that, it is entering into try block. Num equal to 3. So whatever the number I've given here, 3. Now 3 I've given here. This line will take 3. Okay. Now if num is nothing but 3. 3 less than number. 3 less than 10. 3 less than 10. Condition true or false? Condition true or false? Condition true or false? Condition true. If condition true, then what will happen? It will execute the corresponding if condition block, right? If block, right? Then in the if block, what is there? Rise. Rise means it has to come out of this like execution. It has to come out. It has to stop the execution here itself. Wherever it is, whenever it sees the rise here, right? Then it will simply come out of that here. If there is an exception, rise that exception. If it is less than this one, rise that exception. Then come out of the program execution and handle that exception in the exception block. And if it is not there, it will try to behave in a different way. Now, what will happen here is, since it is matching with this exception block here, it will come to this line. In this line, since it is matching here, whatever the code you have written here, right, that block will be executed here. That code will be executed here. Now, in my case, it will print actually this value is too small. Try again. Try again. It will not execute this one. It will not execute this one. It will not execute even else block, elif block also. Because the condition is satisfied, right? Whenever if condition is satisfied, will it go to the elif condition? No. Will it go to the else condition here? No. This else block is actually part of if block actually. It's not part of the try block. See, what I'm trying to say here is, I can even define the custom class exception classes. Not only predefined, if required, we can go ahead and define that one. See, where did you define this one, Siva? You divide by 0 or file not found error, those are defined actually in the backend. If I try to execute this program, what will happen? You try to understand here. Okay. Now see, I don't know what is the problem with this kernel. It's not prompting again. Okay, let me hard code the number here. I'll give here 3. Okay, let me execute this one. It's not printing anything. Let me restart this one. I wanted to close this topic, guys. We are done almost here. We are at the last concept only. See, what is this actually? Value to small error is not defined. This is a class actually, which we did not define. In order to define that one, you need to write the code like this. Where is that one? You need to code like this. You need to write. You need to define those classes upfront. Back end, even for the divide zero and the file not found error, they have defined like this classes. So every class starts with a keyword called class, value too small error, that class name, and custom error. It's a this is actually a parent of the this is the parent, this is the base exception. I call it as a base exception. So I need to define that one as well here. I need to define that one. Base exception or exception also you can take it. Okay. If you don't define that base exception, you can directly take the exception also here. You can define like this also. No problem. You don't need to understand that what is that base exception and all those things. For now, you just try to understand it is just an exception here. So exception is a main class. Under that, I'm trying to define a subclass here. Okay, now let me execute this line here, this block here, and after that, I'll try to execute it. Now it will not throw error. Now see, this value is too small. Try again. You have to define the classes like this, if required. If required, you have to define all these things. That's all. Now conclude. What are all the different formats we have discussed so far? Try with except block. And guys, one more thing. You can define all the exception classes in a single except also. That is also allowed. Sorry, form one I did not discuss, right? Yeah, sorry. First, I need to discuss like this. First, I've explained this one. Try, except any number of except blocks we can define. Okay. After except, actually, you have to define the exception class. Okay. And if it is matching, actually, it will try to execute the corresponding block. Okay. Now, this is one way of writing here. Second way of writing is actually you can write all the exceptions in a single block. Whenever this is like matching any one of these exception, right? It will execute the corresponding block. Any one of the like exception is matched, then it will try to execute the corresponding block. You can write even like this also, if required. So third form is, I told you already, try within exception, you can mention the alias name also. You can use that alias name wherever you want. This is also one of the like way to like use this try except blocks. And the last one is, if you don't know that particular class, you can directly mention that except. Try except. This is the most used one actually, I can say. Whenever you see except here, whenever it is raising an exception here, directly it will come here, and it whatever it is there inside this except block, actually it will try to execute that. That's it. This is the ultimate one. This is the one mostly we use this like in the programming. It's not mandatory to define the exception class here. If you don't know, by default, it will go to the base exception. Base exception will actually execute the corresponding block. This is a parent like class actually. So far what I discussed is, this is a parent class. Inside that one, I'm trying to like checking whether child classes are matching or not. Okay. That's all. That is about the exception. Any question? See, just try to understand the syntax of try except block. That's it. That is enough actually. And you need to understand why we have to use this concept. That's it. Only those two are important. Yeah. If no questions, let me stop recording.